Greta Thunberg.
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 Greta Thunberg. Climate activist, fearless leader, and obsession of aging douchelings like Donald Trump, Piers Morgan, and Peter Thiel, who has called her the Antichrist. Okay. But no one seems more triggered by Greta Thunberg than Fox's funny guy, Greg Gutfeld.
They yelled, free, free Palestine. But now that it's free, they're keeping a lower profile than Greta Thunberg's barber. Shrieking psycho brats, like Greta Thunberg. Greta Thunberg is exactly the Democrat model. Have you thought about this?
No.
Angry, unstable, stupid. Release her into shark-infested waters. I'm kidding. But seriously, she's so annoying. If that ship were the Titanic, you'd be rooting for the iceberg.
Okay, what 11-year-old is writing these jokes? And she's smelly and has cooties and she has a retainer that's blue and I love her. The powerful are so pressed over Greta, and they have been for years. And lately, since her activism on Gaza, we've heard about how Greta has changed, how she used to be such a sweet young activist talking about climate justice and ditching fossil fuels, and now she's been risking her life to stop genocide against Palestinians.
She's certainly different. Anger management. I think she has to go to an anger management class.
Okay, guy who raged out so hard over Greta getting Time Magazine's Person of the Year, your campaign photoshopped your head on her body. Remember that one? That was like 1,059 horrors ago. So in this episode, I'm talking about how Greta has never come to play nice and how her passions for the planet and Palestinians are deeply linked. Because the impact of war around the globe is actually dooming the earth to being uninhabitable to everyone and everything, except for roaches, who, when we're gone, will basically recreate our lives, but in roach form. Like, there will definitely be a Roachuation Room podcast where some roach wearing my clothing explains how the Frantifa went extinct. It's gonna be good. This November, world leaders are once again gathering for the UN Climate Summit, the Conference of Parties, or COP. It has been 30 years since they first began their annual meetings, and progress on stopping the impacts of human-caused global warming has been slow. Slower than the actual pace of global warming, which, if you're keeping track, is not good. It's not how it's done. You don't want that. At this point, COP is just a sad high school reunion where everyone gathers but no one has done anything they can brag about, and everyone still drinks Zima. Remember Zima? I myself was in Paris back in 2016 when leaders signed a historic agreement to keep global warming well below 1.5 degrees Celsius. I was there to troll leaders of polluting businesses and PR suits who swarm the COP conferences each year, pretending that they're serious about stopping climate change when they really just want to greenwash their image.
It's striking to me that one of the main sponsors here is a company like Dow Chemical, which has contributed to honeybee colony collapse and put food security in danger thanks to all of its pesticides. Like, isn't that a little bit of a conflict of interest?
Yeah, but I think you'll find that the fact that Dow are now prepared to put their name to event to put their brand to events like this means that they believe that their sustainability policy is in line with what we would regard as acceptable.
Or this is a good opportunity for them to greenwash their brand.
Good times. And since then, little has changed. The last 10 years are now the warmest 10 years on record. And in 2024, global temperatures were around 1.6 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial period. In other words, countries treated that 1.5 degrees marker kind of like a rolling stop sign. They slowed down and then kept on going. And more oil executives have been infiltrating conferences. 2 years ago at the COP28, there was finally a commitment to transition away from fossil fuels in a just, orderly, and equitable manner. However, the president of COP28 was Dr. Sultan Al Jaber, the CEO of the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company. An oil executive. What are we doing? This is like a drug lord running an AA meeting. And remember, keep coming back, it works. And by it, I mean heroin. The only major difference with the climate summit process lately is that the United States, the second largest emitter of greenhouse gases, has pulled out of the Paris Agreement, only for Biden to enter it again, only for Donald Trump to pull out again. We're basically f***ing the Paris Climate Agreement, entering, pulling out, apologizing and say it never happens when it clearly happens all the time. And it was at the UN Climate Summit back in 2018, the 24th time that COP had met to rack their brains about how to rein in fossil fuels, where a 15-year-old Swedish activist named Greta Thunberg, tired of the doublespeak and the greenwashing, read every world leader for filth.
You only speak of green, eternal economic growth because you are too scared of being unpopular. You only talk about moving forward with the same bad ideas that got us into this mess, even when the only sensible thing to do is pull the emergency brake. You are not mature enough to tell it like it is. Even that burden you leave to us children. Our civilization is being sacrificed for the opportunity of a very small number of people to continue making enormous amounts of money.
Greta has clearly never been sweet or safe. Yeah, I know she had a braid back then, but she's like a radicalized Mother Goose character. Greta followed that appearance a year later with concrete action, filing a violation of the rights of children claim against COP member countries that hadn't done enough to stop climate change, along with 15 other children. It's there in New York that she gave what I think is her showstopper speech, where she's in angry tears telling world leaders in no uncertain terms that they can suck a million dicks.
This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you? You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words, and yet I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering, people are dying, entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you?
That one gets me every time. And Greta has famously never wanted to make her fight for climate justice or the school strikes for the climate movement that she spearheaded about her. She rejected an environmental award from the Nordic Council, writing the climate movement does not need any more awards. What we need is for our politicians and the people in power to start to listen to the current best available science. Instead of joining the speaker circuit or being part of a nonprofit industrial complex, Greta's been organizing and getting arrested. She was arrested protesting the expansion of a coal mine in Germany, arrested blocking a road in a Swedish harbor that transports oil, arrested at The Hague with the group Extinction Rebellion, and generally has been being a badass. And in November of 2023, when it was clear that Israel's pace of murder and choice of targets in Gaza were not about Hamas at all, Greta Thunberg turned her badassery toward the liberation of Palestine. During a massive climate demo in Amsterdam, Greta passed the mic to a Palestinian speaker to talk about what Israel is doing, not just to the people of Gaza, but to the land.
Not only is Israel committing a genocide in Gaza by bombing hospitals and murdering nearly 11,000 Palestinians, over half of whom are children, it's also committing environmental crimes in an attempt to destroy any possibilities of Gazans sustainably producing their own food by poisoning land with white phosphorus bombs.
White phosphorus is just one of the many chemical agents Israel uses on other nations, which not only burns human skin to the bone, but poisons soil and water resources, making the land useless and toxic to life. Now, not everyone at the climate demo was ready to hear about the impacts that Israeli missiles and munitions have on the environment, like this Dutch male Karen, who came up on the stage and grabbed the microphone from Greta herself.
We have not been listening. The people in power have not been listening.
I have come here for a climate demonstration, not a political view. This is climate demonstration.
Calm down.
Wow, I did not know they had libs in Holland. I came for a climate demonstration, not a political view. Buddy, have I got bad news for you? Are you sitting down? Greta, like so many other climate activists, have been trying to wake us up to the reality that the only thing holding back peace and planetary progress is politics and politicians' inability to stand up to the oil and gas industries or to the military industry and, oh yeah, to Israel. Listen to how much her speech she gave after being detained and abused by the Israeli military mirrors how she speaks on the climate.
So-called leaders who are supposed to represent me, who continue to fuel a genocide, death and destruction, they do not represent me. And this is a last resort. That this mission has to exist, it's a shame. It is a shame.
And yet, for the crime of taking action for the people of Palestine, Greta has been told she's changed at best and is an anti-Semite at worst, because she does things like owns an octopus stuffed animal? I don't even want to know. Forbes' Daniel Markind was one of a handful of commentators who lamented the sad tragedy of Greta Thunberg, writing that, quote, for the first time the environment was less important to Greta than world politics. Once again, somehow the environment and world politics are not linked. You're writing for Forbes. I mean, how much did you get paid for that? He says that she seemed to be the natural leader for serious climate action, but that all changed after October 7, 2023, when Greta found a more important cause to her, that is, hatred of Israel. And Zionists and Hezbollah with boats would agree, like these children?
Greta Thunberg, when you were a child, you wanted the good, not the evil. You wanted to protect the world. How come you suddenly became a supporter of terror? You talk about genocide. I invite you to meet me, and I will show you what the children of Israel are going through.
What you're going through, my guy, is your parents forcing you to do 10 takes of this video in exchange for a new PS5 game, and that trade is so not worth it. Or what about this Israeli sketch troupe that is just laugh out loud funny with the satire?
Stop the war!
Guys, amazing news! They stopped the war!
What? They signed a ceasefire after we demanded a ceasefire?
Yeah.
How dare they?
I know. They're slaughtering Christians in Nigeria.
Jews are slaughtering Christians in Nigeria?
Nigeria will be free from the jungle to the tree! Nigeria will be free!
Wait, apparently it's Muslims that are doing the killing. Yeah, Jews had nothing to do with it.
So where is the fun? It's not juicy. It's not juicy.
I mean, we can always go back to fight global warming.
Global warming? What are we, 12?
That's so offensive, comedically. I mean, I know Israelis are used to bombing, but damn. And now I have juicy stuck in my head. Juicy. But the accusation is everywhere. Greta has dropped climate change for Palestine, or in the view of StopAntisemitism.org founder Lyora Rez, dropped it to be an anti-Semite. Rez even gave Greta the award for Anti-Semite of the Week. And girl, you know she doesn't accept awards. She said, sadly, Greta's hatred of the world's only Jewish nation eclipses her love of the environment. Despite Israel being a global leader in tackling climate disasters and rushing to aid in crises worldwide, Greta sides with their homicidal terrorist enemies. Yes, Israel is a global leader in tackling climate disasters and rushing to aid in crises. Just not the disasters or crises it causes right next door. That one's on God. Because beyond the horrors Israel has wrought on the people of Gaza, the damage Israel's done to Gaza's land is what people like Thunberg and others have called an ecocide, on top of a genocide.
Of course, there are the obvious links between climate justice, environmental destruction, and Palestine, which is wars, occupations, environmental degradation, ecocide, huge emissions. They go hand in hand, as Palestinians know very, very well, by destroying all the conditions to maintain and sustain life by, for example, destroying cropland. Just pure ecocides are one way of ecological warfare to deprive Palestinians of their means of of sustaining life.
Ecocide in this case is a fundamental part of genocide, actually. If Palestinians can't live off the land or drink the water, then they can't survive. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, but if you can't sustain life in Gaza, how are Trump, Tony Blair, and Jared Kushner going to turn it into the Trump Riviera? But that would presume that they are indeed alive, instead of part of the undead who survive on drone deliveries of McDonald's and Ozempic. It's a beautiful future. Learn more about that future in my episode on the 5 craziest plans for Gaza. But back to habitability. According to a new report by the Arava Institute, an environmental research institute based in Israel, Gaza is covered with an estimated 61 million tons of rubble, much of which contains asbestos, unexploded munitions, and unburied human remains. And when it comes to carbon emissions from dropping what Gazan officials estimate to be 100,000 tons of munitions on the territory and counting, we're looking at well over 31 metric tons of carbon, or greater than the annual planet-warming emissions of 100 individual countries. Damn. And unlike the US, Israel is actually still party to the Paris Climate Agreement, which is odd because Israel is usually never very good at complying with United Nations agreements. Resolution 242, the Geneva Conventions on Occupation and Settlements, you get the idea. But here's the catch, one that I bet centrist Stroopwafel doesn't know, and something that I didn't know until recently. Greenhouse gas emissions from dropping, say, 100,000 tons of munitions onto a civilian population does not have to be disclosed to the United Nations Framework on Climate Change. That's right, the polluting impact of the 92 countries who are presently engaged in military conflicts is not calculated when countries gather this month to show their work. Because what countries are not revealing is that while their spending on new coal mines might be going down, slightly, their spending on the military is going up. On every continent except Africa, military spending is up, with Europe rising by 13%. And armed conflicts between 2010 and 2022 have doubled. And just like everything else, from consumption to air travel, rich nations are the ones who are spending 30 times more on their militaries. Still, India and Pakistan are high on military climate emissions, which makes sense given the history of aggression between the two. So is China, as it increases activity in the South China Sea, the Sea of Japan, and grows its missile stockpile, nuclear warheads, and generally chest thumps in Taiwan's direction. Emissions from the military is over 5% of global emissions and climbing. Diplomacy, on the other hand, does not emit greenhouse gases, save for the hot air about peaceful solutions that comes out of every leader's mouth. Now, I know you're like, wait, go back to that graph. The US isn't number 1 in military emissions? Well, we are when you break it down per capita. Yes, through our tax dollars, each and every one of us owns a piece of that F-18 that emitted untold amounts of carbon so our micro-dick defense secretary could take this joyride. Just to clarify, he's not flying, by the way. He basically Ubered a propaganda stunt. All so he could look cool reenacting a scene from the movie Top Gun, which, by the way, is not his favorite scene. His favorite scene is when a Navy pilot follows a woman into the ladies' room. Hell yeah. Look, I get the thinking behind investing so much in the military. These so-called terrorists can't do terrorism if they can't live on the planet. It's airtight logic. But people like Greta are very serious about making sure war criminals and their corporate counterparts are held accountable, like Chevron.
Everyone knows that Chevron is one of the world's biggest climate criminals. But the oil giant is also fueling Israel's genocide in Palestine. As Israel bombs hospitals, homes, and schools in Gaza, Chevron supplies them with energy from 2 Israeli-claimed gas fields in the Mediterranean, making millions in the process.
That's so anti-Semitic. Even the environmental impact of rebuilding after wars is massive. Rebuilding Gaza is a prime example, which is projected to generate between 46.8 and 60 million tons of CO2e, higher than the annual emissions of over 135 nations, putting that rebuilding, a wholly avoidable activity, on par with countries like Sweden and Portugal. But hey, have you heard that Israel's on track to produce 1/3 of its electricity through renewable sources by 2030? Wow! And they have new green technology that their companies are pioneering, like roads that can charge your cars and faster charging smartphone batteries, as this questionably AI host on All Israel News explains.
These examples represent just a fraction of Israel's contributions to energy technology. With over 300 companies dedicated to this field, Israel is actively shaping the global landscape of advanced energy solutions.
Of course, our biggest energy solution is the final solution. Ultimately, Greta is right. You can't separate climate change from the issue of war or genocide. You can't actually prevent global warming without reining in militaries or war profiteers, as much as nations and corporations would like to pretend. And ironically, as much as we're told that military spending is about preparedness in the face of any threats, the one threat we're all facing right now, for which we are the least prepared, is climate chaos. So no, Greta hasn't changed. She's doubled down. And if that makes her the Antichrist, then hail Satan. Thanks so much for watching the Bitchuation Room's deep dives. If you want to support this work and the awesome team that helped put it together, Brent Godin, Paige Omek, Andy Vasoyan, myself, please become a patron, patreon.com/bitchuationroom. You get early access to these videos, as well as a little postscript from me talking about the behind the scenes and what went into making this video, why I decided to make it. Also, you can become a subscriber for free. Subscribe, youtube.com/FrannyFio, or give this podcast 5 stars if you're listening as a podcast. You can also become a member on YouTube as well. I will take it all. And thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.